Chapter 337. As she thought about this, Lady Richard could not help but feel very excited as she said to Sean, "Oh, Chairman Richard, your father was truly a good man who was very grateful to his savior. He actually remembered everything that happened even after all these years." Sean nodded and sighed before he said, "After all, he was his benefactor and savior. My father has not forgotten everything that he had done for him even after so many years." Then, Sean took out a high-end jewelry box from his pocket and handed it over to Lady Richard, saying, "My father passed this to me on his deathbed and told me that I had to deliver this to his savior no matter what. Since Lord Richard has already passed away, I will just hand this over to you instead, Lady Richard." Lady Richard thought that Sean's father must have planned to give her a rare treasure to thank the old man for saving his life. Therefore, she quickly opened the jewelry box excitedly and looked inside the jewelry box. However, it turned out to be a rusty bullet. What the hell was this? Lady Richard stared at Sean before she asked, "Chairman Richard, this is..." Sean hurriedly replied, "This is the bullet that hit my father's leg back then. His savior used a pocket knife to dig it out of his leg, and my father had been keeping it with him ever since that day. Before he passed away, he told me to pass this to his savior as a keepsake." Lady Richard almost cursed out loud. What the heck? Her husband had saved his father's life, and all his father had wanted to give him was a rusty old bullet to commemorate that day? Was this how they were going to repay his kindness? This rusty old bullet was not even worth a single penny. Moreover, it had also entered a human body before. Why was Sean giving her this useless item? He might as well reward them with $18 million so that they could tide through the difficulties they were facing now. As she thought about this, Lady Richard heaved a huge sigh of relief before saying, "I really did not expect your father to be such a kind and righteous person. I guess if he found out that our Richard family is now facing a crisis, he would definitely offer us a helping hand, right?" Sean was startled by this. A poor relative was indeed a poor relative. They had just met and she was already trying to ask him for money? However, since he was here to help the old man reciprocate his good wishes, he did not want to be rude to Lady Richard. Thus, Sean asked, "Lady Richard, I wonder what huge crisis your family has encountered." Lady Richard quickly replied, "We own a company engaging in construction and refurbishments called the Richard Group. Our business was booming, but we are currently experiencing a problem in our capital chain, and our company is going bankrupt. It would be great if we had some money to pull through these tough times." Sean nodded slightly before he smiled and said, "Lady Richard, you look like a very blessed person. Don't worry too much. I believe that the Richard family will surely have good luck to pull through this crisis." Lady Richard genuinely wanted to curse at Sean after listening to his words. The reason why she had told him about their family crisis was that she wanted him to feel grateful toward her and offer to give them some money to pull through the crisis. After all, his father owed her husband a huge favor for saving his life. Shouldn't he repay his kindness with something more valuable instead? In the end, all Sean said was that she looked like a blessed person and that the Richard family would surely be able to survive this crisis. If it weren't for his distinguished status and identity, Lady Richard would have already slammed Sean's face against the bench. Just then, Sean could not help but look at Olivia, who still had a desperate and pitiful expression on her face. He smiled before he said, "Lady Richard, it seems as though you have not introduced the other members of your family to me." Lady Richard looked toward the direction that Sean was looking at, and based on the expression on his face, she could immediately tell that he was interested in Olivia. Right then and there, Lady Richard suddenly had an idea.